Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, and I'm along here with...
Hi, good morning. I'm Bonni Snyder, your co-host.
Yay! We had a really good week with a guest last week, so we want to talk about that here in just a few seconds. But before I forget, because if we don't do it now, then, at the end of the show, usually time runs away. So we want to thank Area 52 Media Group, Rob and John for producing this show for us and letting us do what we do up here every week. Mm-hmm. And we have some events coming up. I'm going to nail down the date. I'll have it next week. It'll probably be the end of March that the Freedom Boat Club of Tampa Bay is going to take several suicide loss survivors on a really nice boat trip, pontoon boat trip out of Catches, out to the Gulf, the stilt houses, kind of like a recreation, history kind of type thing. We've had a nice, calming, relaxing, informational day, just, to chill out. Come back and come up the Cody River up to Sims Park and back around. I think it'd be really cool. So hopefully next week we've got all the details on that finalized. And then in a couple of weeks on the 21st, which, there's a lot going on that day. That's the day of your knee surgery. We have Rooters is putting on a mixer networking fundraiser at the Slice of Life Pizzeria on Embassy and Little Road on the 21st. I think it's from 5 to 8. It's $5. And you get, we have pizza and he puts out pizza and salads, and we'll have gift basket raffles and all sorts of things. It's a really fun time. The last couple ones have been, super well attended, and it gets nonprofits the opportunity to showcase themselves and let maybe some people in the community that don't know so much about us. Every month, Rooters features a different local nonprofit to help out and raise a little bit of money for. So we got those. Again, that's this month, the 21st. I think it's a Tuesday evening.
It is Tuesday.
You know for sure that.
I know the 24th for a fact. The 21st is a Tuesday.
21st is a Tuesday.
The 14th is on a Tuesday, and 7 days later is the 21st.
So we have those things coming up, and then you have a surgery coming up, so we're gonna have to do remote maybe in a couple weeks, but we'll see.
Yeah, what was interesting, and I think we shared it before. I have a complex meniscus tear, and so I'm like, this, my surgeon, or my ortho doctor. Well, she's also the surgeon. Yeah, this one's going to need surgery. I was like, okay, when is it? And I get the phone call yesterday. It's like the 21st, because my brain wasn't processing, The 21st, all right, let's get it done. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. But here's the thing, though. It's funny because the 19th is Daytona. Mm-hmm. And Greg's work, they're taking 4 buses, I think.
Oh, really? To Daytona?
They're taking 4 buses to Daytona.
Oh, wow.
And, or maybe it's 6 buses. Anyway, 6 or 8 buses. Greg is a tour guide. And, we're talking, and he was like, yeah, we have 6 buses. Yeah, it's 6. We have 6 buses going to Daytona. On a tour, and I was like, "Oh, that's great, because we don't have enough tour guides." So how are you guys going to do this if you have buses and a tour guide? It's like, oh well, his boss, you guys will find people that are willing to be a tour guide for a day. And so I'm thinking, Daytona, and I'm not, I don't really, I like muscle cars and everything like that. And I've never been to the race itself.
Oh, it's so cool.
And so I'm like, I'm looking, oh, that's on a Sunday. So I'm like, that's great. I'll go up on a Sunday, help them out and come back home and, be back to work on Monday. But I just recently, the day before yesterday, came back from Tallahassee. I was up in Tallahassee doing some advocacy work, for my other job. But I was like, because it was like, stretched out days with like 2 back-to-back 16-hour days, which, doesn't bother me. I thrive on this. Like, yes, let me do this some more. Well, anyway, me and four other team members, went up. And so our supervisor was like, you get 2 flex days, or we get, 2 days off, for doing that, because the days were so long. But anyway, I'm like, yes, I'm going to take the 20th off. So Daytona on the 19th, but take off the 20th since our supervisor just gave us some extra days off. And then I was like, oh, your surgery's on the 21st. I'm like, really? Couldn't have planned any better, but, but then I'm like, oh, wait, but that's the same night as our mixer. So, I'm unfortunately may have to miss that because I'll be coming, I'm not sure when I'll be coming out of, thankfully it's an outpatient kind of procedure. So
yeah, I can't imagine that you're going to be, I don't know.
Oh, wanting to come and hang out after that? No. Probably not. I mean, I'm doing where I'm pain tolerant, but no, probably not. So I'll have to miss that. Which means the following week when we're filming, it'll probably be remote from home.
Probably. That's good. We got that down pat.
You know, Rob, Bonnie will be remote in 2 weeks. Just saying.
We got that down pat.
We do that. We got the remote piece.
Yeah. So the trip to Tallahassee went well?
The trip to Tallahassee went really well. One of the things that we talk about, as you look at when we roll our intro and the topics that, we focus on, one of it is, we have mental health in there and we have substance misuse. And we took with us, under the ASAP umbrella, one of the, initiatives, the coalition pieces, is our Stand Above the Influence, which is the youth component, of ASAP, and Drug-Free America. And I would love to maybe get Amy on the show. I can ask her about that one time. But anyway, Drug-Free America was sponsoring this what's called Advocacy Day, and they do it, pretty much every year. But it is an opportunity for, people who are, in the field, coalitions that are in the field of addressing, substance misuse, and mental health disparities, to policymakers. Hey, this is what's going on. And, our youth, led the majority of the discussion, with our policymakers. But what I found is, when you think about, here we are up in our, the state capitol having these discussions. And if I talk about, just, for a moment on the issue of mental health disparities and the different populations that is impacted, and, it's one of our youth, like I said, he did a phenomenal job with that piece of it. But he talked about there are 3 main populations that are affected by, mental health disparities, or not having access, to mental health, medical or mental health care. But again, we were specifically talking about the mental health aspect. But he says, and I mean, he was very, I don't want to say dramatic, but for lack of a better word, as he's, getting his point across, he was like, there were 3 topics, 3. And I'm looking at this kid, I'm like, you go. I'm biased when it comes to our kids. And he was like, the first one is money. And, and he was looking, he goes, people don't have enough money to pay for services, therefore they can't be seen. And he goes, the second one, are people with disabilities. And, he goes, because, how did he put it? Employers don't want to insure them because they don't want to have to pay the extra, because it just might cost them extra money. And then, he, talked about, minorities. And he's like, there are some people that just don't want to, provide, care to that population. And he just said, and for me, he goes, I think that is just simply disgusting. And again, I knew this. I've known this kid for a while. I work with this. His mom, is on my team. So I want to say 5 years, 6 years. I would say almost 6 years I've known him. So I knew him as a 10, 11-year-old. He's 15, 16 now. I think he's at 15 or 16. But to watch the maturity. And so, like I said, here we are. For 2 days talking to, policymakers to tell them, hey guys, we really need to do something to address what's going on. And, I step back and I think what we do here in terms of, here's some information, guys. There's an issue out here. There's a, I hate to say problem. I don't like the word problem. But here's a situation. This is a challenge that we have to address, mental health, to address suicide, to address, substance misuse, and what can we do to combat these things. But yeah, we left driving up. My day started at 6 o'clock in the morning. Was it Tuesday morning? Yeah, Tuesday morning. Started at 6 o'clock in the morning. 4-hour drive there. Got checked in and whatnot. Day went until I think it was like almost 10:30 before, we got the kids settled, in their hotel rooms. All right, guys, once you're in the room, you stay in the room. You're not allowed to come out. And then, then we went to bed. And then the next day, got up at 6 o'clock. And I want to say for the next, from like 8 o'clock in the morning until about 5 o'clock in the evening, we were in front of, I think we got to see 7 different, state representatives and whatnot. We saw, one that represents us and is very heavily involved in what, we all do, Danny Burgess. We got to see him, and oh my God, such an awesome guy. And
Danny's really cool.
He's, firmly behind, what our mission is and, what we do. And then, I think by the time I got home, I was talking to my supervisor yesterday, and I was like, yeah, by the time I got home and in the bed, it was 11 o'clock. And she was like, yeah, it was a long day. But yeah, it was a very successful trip. This was the first one that we were able to do, post-COVID. So we had one pre-COVID, the next one we were supposed to go to, we had it all planned, ready to go, and bam, COVID happened, so we couldn't go, and so it was exciting to be able to be back.
Oh, that's cool. Well, yeah. That's good. It's a good experience for the kids. I remember when I went up there with BPW to address, women's issues and stuff several years ago, and to meet with lawmakers, and it's a really cool experience to go to the state capitol and talk to these people. I can't imagine, being a kid in high school doing it, or middle school. It's a good experience for them. It
was, and like one of the things that I found interesting is that one thing the kids were talking about was Delta 8. And, I stopped counting, say up to 7 representatives, senators, representatives that we saw. I can speak to maybe 3, if not 4 of them. What is Delta 8? We've never heard of it. And we're like, wow. And in my head, of course, I'm processing, you're one of our policymakers. And and I'm not knocking them, mind you, by any stretch of the imagination. You don't know what it is. And we start looking at it. It's like, go into any gas station, go into any smoke shop. It's right there. And the one little girl that was, her part to talk about. She, highlighted the fact that, candies, or candy lookalikes are being infused with this stuff, and it's being sold, and it's not regulated, and anybody can buy it. There's no age restriction on it. So of course the suggestion was, if we regulate tobacco and alcohol, you can't buy it until 21. Why aren't we regulating this stuff too? And one of the very last representative, we saw, she was throwing curveballs at the kids. Like the other representatives, they sat back, listened to the kids talk, and then they had questions. she and it could have been, because it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were all tired and whatnot. But also to that point, there was like, she's firing questions at the kids, and it kind of caught them off guard. So the adults in the room, we had to kind of step forward and answer a little bit. But I'm like, let the kids do it. But anyway, she was like, it's too late to put this on the bill, this session. It's like already got to be done. But come back and see me in January so we can get something drafted, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
That she was like, we could amend one of the bills that we have now to add this in, but to get something that's just specifically addresses this, it's too late now, but y'all come see me in January. And we're like, and the kids, I was like, did you guys hear that? Like, this representative just looked at you guys and said, come back and see her in January. So, it would be nice to be able to have her
see that process,
sponsor this bill,
right.
And to say that, our youth, helped, draft this, which would be phenomenal for them.
Oh yeah, no, that would be really cool.
But yeah, it was, like I said,
and to see the whole process go through with something that they're passionate about.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to bring it because I know that this week is a hard week. You just had Aydin's birthday. And Valentine's. But I wanted to kind of dedicate this show to him.
I wish that if I'd have been known that and would have been thinking, I would have as Carl or Kira, someone
I was thinking about that this morning too.
there's next week too, because it's we'll surpass the 14th by then. But no, it was funny because here I am in Tallahassee and I'm doing I'm so caught up on Advocacy Day and what we were doing there. And on the drive home, my oldest sister calls me, and we're chit-chatting, hey, how's it doing and whatnot. And she says her son, one of her, she's 5 boys, so her second oldest, his wife had given birth on Wednesday to a new baby. So, I'm like, I was like, oh, so you're a great grandma now, as one of her kids. I mean, because my sister's, older than, well, I guess I'm old. Well, yeah, I'm old enough to, I have grandchildren old enough to have children, but they're not doing it. Thank you very much. Down a rabbit hole for a second. But anyway, she was telling me, that, her son, her daughter-in-law, just giving birth, and we're talking about it. I was like, oh, this is really cool and whatnot. And I got home and, like I said, mind you, I'm driving back from Tallahassee, all of the hustle and bustle, and then it hit me, oh my gosh, today, so this, we open Wednesday, we know this show, airs tomorrow, which is Saturday for us. We tape on a Friday, so it's Friday for us. But Wednesday, I was like, oh my goodness, Aydin would have been 18. So this would have been, Aydin's 18th birthday. And, as I was, processing, wow, what would he be doing now? And, I'm looking at, as I posted on my, to my page, we should be planning your graduation right now. I should be getting phone calls that says, hey, Nana, my graduation is, so this is February, March, April, May. Graduation's in 3 months. We're prepping for it right now. You're coming for my graduation, right, Nana? Of course. So I should have been prepping for his graduation. He, should have already, been 2 years into having his driver's license. I expect to, that, I should be hearing, hey, Nana, summertime's coming, or talking to his sister, spring break is coming. Nana, can we come for spring break? You guys can come whenever you want to. But at the same time, I find myself feeling some kind of way, and there's a whole range of emotions that I can put on it, in that we only had him for 14 years. And I think about for a chunk, and I'm going to say 10 of those 14 years, I was here in Florida. And, I sit back and I think of, how many summer vacations that they didn't get to come here. How many events, and things, back home, whether it's school plays or, he was into archery and, the things that he was doing back there that I didn't, I missed out on seeing. I remember there was a time when they were here in Orlando at Disney. And, I remember calling, telling them, it's like, oh, you guys are in Orlando, depending, it's like, because my brain was, I was, new to Florida, back then, so he had to be 5, so I think was here like a year. But anyway, they were like, oh, if you guys are in Orlando, it takes me like an hour or hour and a half to get from my house to Orlando, depending on where you guys are, because my brain was like, depending on where you are. But anyway, I remember, and I could still hear the conversation to this day. It's the day they were leaving to go back home. Is when I get a phone call, you can come see him if you want. And I was annoyed. I was really annoyed. But anyway, he's on the phone and he was like, "Are you going to come see us?" Now, mind you, he's like 5, so he's a child. So it's, and I was like, Aydin, and I was like, I would love to come see you. I said, but I won't get there before you get on the plane. And I just remember him saying, but Nana, I'm in Florida. And he knew I was in Florida. Nana, I'm in Florida. And I'm like, I know, sweetheart. But where you are and where I am, it's too far away. I won't get there before you get to the airport. And, even if I could get to the airport, I won't be able to get to where you are before you get on the plane to go home. And, I'm like, I just remember, my own heartbreak and, trying to explain to this, this child, it is not that Nana doesn't want to come see you. It is, there was not enough time built in for me to get there to see you before you went, before you had to go back home. And so it's things, for me like that I look at, and I guess I put in my post, if I only knew what moving to Florida was going to mean, as it, related to, time spent and memories that, other people have shared that, I don't have to share. I think the other thing for me is, we're going on 4 years now, reconciling the fact that I did not really get a chance to say goodbye, and, still, trying to grapple with, the fact that I wasn't even able to properly say goodbye to this child that was my flesh and blood. That, had I not given birth to his dad, his mom wouldn't have given birth to him, and I couldn't say goodbye, and I couldn't say goodbye, in the manner in which, and I feel robbed, I feel robbed of that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, there are things that we have no control over, and things that we have to just, take a step back and, process and accept. But I think for me, that's one of the biggest things, but I think about, gosh, him on the boat, being out on the lake on the boat, and, his hair got darker as he got older, but, as a little guy, his hair was, blondish, and I think I remember saying, where'd the blonde hair come from? Like, Ask it up on his mother's blonde hair. But again, where'd the blonde hair come from? And watching his curls, blow when we're here on the boat, just zipping up and down the lake, and just watching that big cheeky smile, and his hair blowing in the wind. This picture was actually taken during his sister's graduation, and he was just like, "I'm so glad you're here, Nana," and I miss you.
How old is he in this?
So this would have been. All right, God, you just threw a curveball on me. He might have been 12-ish. Let me think. All right. Let me do the. Oh, wait a minute. No. I figured this out. All right, so if he would have been 18. Trent was 17. Mackenzie was 18. If I was here, he was probably 12, 13, maybe 14 in that picture. Joe, not too long.
Too long before.
Well, if he was 12, 13, and he was 14 when he left us, so that picture was probably...
Yeah, and he had just turned 14.
Yeah, so that picture was probably taken about a year or two beforehand. I have such a hard time. It's like, what year did Raven graduate? I'm like, hold a minute now. That's funny. I drew, look at what year. But yeah, I would say that picture's probably taken a year, less than, probably 2 years or less before he left us.
I was looking at, there's another grief expert that we've had this book on here briefly before, but I was looking at his website, and there is one of the books, and it's caught my eye, and I thought I had it, and I went through the library I have at the office, and I didn't have it, but it's by a woman that he recommends, and it is something like No Time to Say Goodbye. I thought for sure that I had it, and I even looked on my Audible books because I thought it was in there. But that one popped out at me this morning when I was looking at some stuff.
Yeah, because we're on the search, guys, for what is going to be our next book. What's the next book that we want to?
Well, I think we're gonna do maybe
funding meeting.
We'll maybe not do the whole book. We'll do some excerpts of it, because I did. David Kessler is another grief expert. He's been around a while. He lost his son, I think he was in his early 20s, 2021, I believe, to an overdose. I'm not quite sure, but I'm fairly sure I watched it. But he has a website also called grief.com, and he has a lot of resources on there. And he has on there, it's called Tender Hearts, which is an online grief support group. And he's got support groups that are grief specific, like, for suicide, the loss of a parent, or a bunch of different ones. And they have support groups throughout the week that you can attend via Zoom. I think this one is a subscription. It's like $35 a month, but there's a ton of resources on his site. I mean, just a ton of them. I'm going through I got 3 of the programs in my library. But this book, Finding Meaning, the 6th Stage of Grief, because I had picked out a couple things that I was reading. There's, what is meaning, the meaning of death, the decision, the first step in finding meaning. He says every loss has meaning. And another section in here is challenges in grief. Finding meaning in why. That's a big one. Why? Yeah.
And I like those, especially, when I sit back and I look at, again, coming up on, next week, next Tuesday is, Valentine's Day, which, is the 4th anniversary of Aydin's loss. And, I think, well, I should say, I think, we've talked about this a lot. And I know, for us having access to resources, to deal with grief and whatnot. I mean, we have a grief support group, that we do the first Thursday of every month. And that was, specifically for people who have lost people to, overdose. Mm-hmm. And, what I hear, from that book is very prevalent to, the journey that I hear people are on, and to include my own journey. But it is an issue of, trying to make sense. Like, I look at it, when I'm talking to people, and it's like, all right, so guys, what we're going to try and do here is we're going to try and make sense of the nonsense. Try and make sense of what, like here we're dealing with something that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So now let's make sense of the nonsense. And people are like, what do you mean let's make, and when people hear that, at one point it sounds stupid. But then when I say it again, I was like, we're going to make sense of nonsense. Mm-hmm. I get this like, oh my goodness, that was, like I've never had anybody put it before. So I love that, when we get a resource like this, and we're able to talk through it, it brings things to light.
Oh, geez.
See what I did there, guys?
Good run. Good.
See?
Well, yeah, it does. Well, he's got a couple of, there's 3 sections in this book. Every loss has meaning, and challenges in grief. And he's got this, has it broken down in, of course, finding the meaning and why. And he touches on, he's got chapters on suicide, complicated relationships. And I kind of highlighted that one for me because of just recently losing my mom. And our relationship was complicated for many years. There's also a loss, of a child, miscarriage, and infant loss.
Well, see, the other thing, what I would say about, when I hear, you talk about complicated relationships, sometimes those complicated relationships do not only include that person that's lost, mm-hmm. okay? Because I'm hearing it's like, oh, okay, I just lost my mom, and, and when I think of my own mother, my own mother, thank God is still here. It's going to be 90, in April 7th, yeah, she turns 90. Oh, wow. Yeah, I was talking to my mom yesterday, and, same thing, my mom and I, we have, similar complicated mm-hmm. relationships. And she jokingly told me I'm going to retire, this year, and I laughed. I was like, okay, that's going to happen. But anyway, when I think of, grief, loss, and complicated relationships, and if I put it, I'm going to use, again, go back to Aydin for a moment. Because part of the, and again, I'm going to go air quotes to a degree, complicated relationship that was going there is you had 2 blended families. Okay, mm-hmm. So, his mom was remarried. And, in that remarriage, her current husband and his family. And then you have, me, his dad, and our family over here. And, what I found with the kids, which one might say that whole complication was the blending of the 2 families. And I think sometimes what happens in those relationships is certain people begin to feel insignificant, mm-hmm. And again, I don't think I've ever said this publicly to anybody. No, actually, I know I've never said it publicly to anybody, but there was a part of me that almost felt jealous, in terms of you guys getting time with I'm sharing my grandson with you only because my daughter-in-law, and I still call her, is married to your son, and so, why is it that you guys get time that I don't, kind of thing. And so, of course, when Aydin was gone, it was like, wow, and I will never get any of that, I was like, oh, I kind of have to wait until he's older, and, or let me just get back to the Midwest, and I think, I don't want to say fortunately or the unfortunate loss of Aydin, I could say the one majorly positive thing that came out of is when his mom, Kira, and I, people think, do you and Kira even like each other? And my thing was like, no, I love Kira. I've always loved Kira. And I'm not throwing shade or whatnot, but I didn't realize that I think someone had told me that I found out that Kira didn't think I liked her. She wasn't good enough for my son. And I was like, no, that was never the case. I always loved Kira. I loved Kira. I mean, before, they had their first kid together, I'm like, hey, when Carl's active duty, we're going to go see Carl graduate basic training. You want to go? I didn't know Carl and Kira were broken up. From what I understand, they were allegedly broken up. But I'm inviting her to go along. My other two kids were like, they're not together. They said that to me, would she have gone? I don't know, but I'm glad they didn't because we got Reeve and him, But anyway, I'm glad, if nothing else, that our blended family, even though we were connected and, there was love, we had love for one another, that bond was strengthened, and I'm especially grateful for the role reversal that happened between Kira and I when we lost Pat, and Kira became my rock. I mean, just, and I wonder, and I don't know if I've ever asked her this question before, but I wonder if being there for me after Pat. Actually, no, I don't have to wonder. I feel being there for me after Pat was another way to help her get through what she was, and mind you, continues, to deal with, from losing Aydin. I mean, again, these two losses were 6 months apart. So I think it's important to point out that complicated relationships don't always mean the relationship that you had with the person who's not here anymore.
No, that's absolutely true. It's kind of like the same way with, one of my sisters and my brother. There's 4 of us kids. I'm the oldest. But, I've been gone from our hometown, which mostly everybody lives near there now, since 1979. My siblings were still kids when I left home, for reasons that they really don't know and they don't really need to know about now. But it's all 4 of us are so different, and like the one thing, it's funny, the one thing Mom, she always wished that we would have got along better, which we're all so totally different. And this good friend of my mom, after Mom passed away, I checked in on her. She made the comment, she said, I really hope that you kids can now pull together. And I read the comment and I just shook my head. I'm like, I'm sorry, Marilyn. I didn't say it, to her. I just don't see it happening. Between a couple of the siblings, it's just kind of, now with this, has gotten further apart. With my other sister, her and I do really well. But it's the extended family too, aunts and uncles, But yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to be just between you and that one person, or whatever. Also in here, he addresses illnesses of our mind, mental illness and addiction. And I really love the last 4 chapters of this book. Is chapter 12 is more love than pain, then legacy. And chapter 14 is grieving to believing, the afterlife. And then chapter 15 is everything has changed forever, which I think that's something that we all come to pretty quickly, in this. But I think that I think we'll maybe go through just a few of these.
Oh, I like the idea.
I think it would be good. Again, like I said, he's got a really great website. He also has podcasts that are available on Spotify, where he has spoken with people like Dr. Laura Berman. I don't know if you know who she is.
That sounds right.
Ashley Judd. She talks about the loss of her mom. Tyler Henry, he's the psyche guy. Cute kid. There he is. Craig Melvin, who is one of the hosts on the Today Show. So he's got all these podcasts on Spotify that are available. And he has a quote on here. I pulled it off one of these pages. If you are carrying grief with you, know this. There are no rules, but there is always hope.
I like that. That's how we sign off every week.
Yeah, there is always hope. So I saw that and I was like, oh, I have to say this on there. So check out his website, and if you are interested in the Tender Hearts community, it's a safe place. I'm sure you can probably find some things on YouTube with David Kessler, and he has, they have other books available, and we'll feature some of them too on our website, the ones that he recommended, because there was a couple of them, like I said, I thought I had it, and for some reason I can't find it, but if you have a hard time finding things, then you can go through our website and Facebook pages and all that. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I will always encourage people, to seek out, somebody to talk to, whether it is a one-on-one discussion with someone, or a grief group, or a support group, because I find what I like about groups, and I say this from the standpoint of not only being someone who has been a participant in a group, but also as a person who facilitates groups, is that what each individual takes away from the group is just that. It's individual. And I remember I was working with a group of young girls, and we were just kind of doing some reflection on what they were getting out of the group, and whether or not the process was productive for them. And I'm like, give me your thoughts, give me your ins and outs. And the one girl, she's with me last year, younger groups, but she's in a group with me last year, and she's back in a group with me this year. And she says, and personalities change, new people come in and whatnot. But as we're talking, it was, sometimes we get focused on one person's issue, and no one else gets to talk. And then there were other times where everybody is talking, and it's kind of like, and I looked at her, and and I had to step back and I had to think about this for a moment. In like that, sometimes some people, you get caught on one person's issue, and I think that's very illustrates each person, where each person's is in their journey, whether it is, grief, mental health, happiness, whatever the emotion is they're dealing with at the time. And, sometimes this one person is going to be in the spotlight because at the time whatever they're going through needs the most shine on it to pick them up. Then there's other times where, everybody's kind of just chatting because everybody's kind of like, all right, we may not be okay, but at least now, I think it's a difference between somebody being in a full-on, breaststroke or whatever stroke that you use to get across the pool with no problem to, I'm just floating here, treading water, we're doing the doggy paddle to stay afloat, or I'm underneath the water and I'm drowning. And that's, for me, what I love about groups. Sometimes I'm drowning. I don't mean me personally, mind you, but there are sometimes that we are drowning, and we need somebody there with the life preserver to toss it out of us and pull us out of the water. There are sometimes where I'm treading water. It's like, okay, I'm here for a moment, or I'm just floating. Like, okay, I'm here, I'm good to go, or I'm okay. I'm going through something right now. And then there are those times where we feel like we're in that full-on butterfly stroke going across the water. Hey, I'm good right now. There's nothing I need to talk about until, oh my God, I'm tired. And I'm treading water or I'm drowning again. So
I tried a group. This was back when I lost my first husband, and when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and I was really young then. I was 26, and there were no grief groups for somebody my age, that had gone through a traumatic loss like that. So I was in a group. I was at a church with a bunch of women that were way older. It's probably like my age now. I'm thinking about it, I was like, oh, I'm probably the age I am now back then. But it wasn't something that I could connect with because they had all been married for years, and most of them, it was just, the natural process of life, living and dying. And for me, I was young, and somebody took my husband away from me, tragically. So I couldn't connect with that. Thankfully, over the years, things have changed, and there are more, I think it's leveled out a little bit more, so it's kind of a little bit more age friendly across the board, maybe. I don't know, but I still haven't gone back to a group. And it took me a long time to even go back to a therapist because of my experience, back then with a therapist when my first husband was killed was horrible.
Right. I think where things have progressed from is there was a time when I can't be in a group, I can't connect to a group of people that are older or younger than me until it does make the process a little difficult because you're in a group with people whose experience is different than yours. And so I think what happens, is, and I'm just kind of spitballing here, wait, these people in this group right here, their spouses are not here because their spouses were old, and you're supposed to, like you're old, so you're expected to be end of life, or no one is surprised when you're not here anymore because, well, you've lived your life. Versus, wait a minute, my spouse was a young guy, and his loss was through this accident. And so I think sometimes, I would hope that we have all progressed, and she's used as an example. I'm not, this is not directed at you. I'll just make sure, full disclosure, I'm not directed at you. But I think, sometimes what happens is, some people get stuck on the way the person was lost. The same way we get stuck on, I'm not depressed. So I can't understand what you're going through because I don't have depression. I have something else. I have anxiety, not depression. So I can't relate to you. I can't be empathetic to what you're going through because it's not what I'm going through. When I feel the focus should be more on let's develop an understanding of what each other, or find the commonality in what we both are going through. At the end of the day, the common thread is we both lost somebody, and I'm not saying that how we lost them is insignificant, and I don't get me wrong, how the loss happened, I feel, again, impacts how you deal with the grief process in itself. Or how you muddle through how do you get through the grief?
Muddle.
I don't want to say muddle.
Muddle.
So to me, it's like losing. And again, if I go use Patrick for example, if I'd have lost Pat any other way than how I lost him, would that have made my grief less? Absolutely not. But I have no doubt that I would process it differently because I do. I process Aydin's, losing Aydin and losing Patrick, where they're both devastating. This is
right.
a child and a grandchild, mind you. At the same time, though, it's like both of the losses are processed differently because of the manner in which they were lost.
Oh yeah, well, and I can see that, even in myself, because with Bobby, he had MS for 25 years, and I kind of, over the years, I don't know how to word it, developed a thing within my own head that I was probably going to be a widow again, more than likely because of his illness. I could, sitting here now, and since his death, can say I could have dealt with that way of him leaving us way easier than the way that he did leave us. The suicide was just way too devastating.
Well, and I think because it is, when we think of, whether it's suicide, or an overdose, you guys left us because that was something that was, that was within your control. You chose to do this.
Right.
And if you had not made that choice, you'd still be with us. And where, yes, it makes sense, on the other side, I was like, dangerous thinking, because they really did not have control.
Right.
There was an issue going on.
Right. That's true.
Or they felt, I have no control, therefore this is the one thing that I can. And I know that sounds very contradictory at the same time.
But it's very true.
Yeah.
So it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can see some people saying, Bonnie, you just contradicted yourself. I know.
But it's true.
Yeah, I know. And it was contradictory for a reason, So, anyway. Whew. We got through a lot today.
Well, we'll get through some more next week and get through this next week. Just keep Aydin's family out in the Midwest and Bonni in your thoughts and prayers this week through
Tuesday is going to be a somber one for us.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I took the day off, canceled all my groups, guys. I want you to understand. Yeah. I didn't know that Valentine's Day was going to fall on a Tuesday. And I looked at my supervisor, I'm canceling everything. And she knows. I mean, she's very, she knows. Everything's canceled. Anyway, I think we should get to our quote.
Our quote, and this is a David Kessler quote: "The internal work of grief is a process, a journey. It does not prescribe dimensions, and it does not end on a certain date."
I like that. Because again, as I sit back and I think of, people who have, experienced loss themselves, or may have experienced losses that people think were expected, older people or people that were sick. How many times have we heard from people, "You haven't gotten over it yet? Come on, get over it. It's, it was X number of years ago," and it's not. So this is why we give you the reminder to put the numbers.
Yeah, please put the hotline numbers, have those available in your phone. Easy to memorize the new call text 988 number. Since that number has been into effect, they've had a tremendous increase in calls.
The percentages, I was looking at the percentages, they are off the hook. But then, like I said, you never know when you might need these numbers.
Yeah,
it's important to have
it's safer to have them. But if anybody is in dire need, get them to the emergency room immediately. So with that, it'll be a good week.
It will be.
It'll be a good week, and just remember, there's always hope. Thanks for staying with us.